Okay, so what are some of the factors that are going to impact how long the short sale is going to take and how complex it is?
If you wanna sell your house very fast for cash, then House Cash In gets the cash flowing.
The first factor we're going to look at is what type of loan is actually defaulting. That matters a lot because the type of loan is going to impact how much financial documentation the lender needs and really how long the short sale is going to get stretched out. For example, an FHA loan. FHA loans are very strict, and the lender is going to put the borrower through what's called a financial waterfall. So they're going to make them go through a mortgage modification, the whole application, and then put them through the financial waterfall, which essentially they're going to have to submit a couple years tax returns, a full hardship letter with supporting documentation to that hardship letter, bank statements. If they're self-employed, they're going to have to submit a P&L, so on and so forth. The list goes on. So it's really complex when it comes to submitting financial documentation. Whereas a conventional loan, not so much. A conventional loan doesn't put the borrower through a financial waterfall. And although you're going to have to fill out a request for mortgage assistance, it's still a lot less complex because you're not going to have to put all the supporting documentation into the package. Whereas a Fannie Mae loan, totally different ballgame. A Fannie Mae loan is a government-backed loan, so they have their own set of rules and guidelines. I think you get the picture. Another impact, guys, is an unreliable buyer. What do I mean by that? There's two sources of an unreliable buyer. The first is someone who's going to lowball. If the buyer sends in a really low offer, because investors a lot of times think just because it's a short sale, they can get a really, really low deal without supporting the offer. If that happens, the investor's just spinning their wheels, and honestly, they're just wasting everyone's time. A lot of time will go by. The whole offer will go through the process just for the bank to come back and probably decline the offer, maybe counter it. The second type of unreliable buyer is if the buyer's unprepared. Maybe the offer's not low, maybe it's a really solid offer, but they're not prepared with their LLC documentation, their proof of funds, they're slow to execute the documents, there's certain addendums they're going to have to sign related to the short sale. They might fill those out incorrectly, so on and so forth. Stuff like that could really put a damper on how quick the short sale is moving along and the momentum. Let's take a look at some other factors. There's lack of a professional short sale processing company. If, we see all the time real estate agents try to process the short sale themselves, and really, guys, they don't have, and not just real estate agents either, it's pretty much anyone trying to process it. Unless you're a short sale specialist, the chances are you don't have the proper follow-up systems in place and the lines of communication in order to process it at maximum capacity. So that's a problem, and honestly, a lot of times, short sales can get out of control. I mean, the offer can get submitted, and literally you won't hear back from the lender for months. I mean, it's crazy. It can get really, really ugly. Another factor is a non-cooperative seller. Simply put, the only way to get a short sale done is to have the seller of the property fully cooperative. They're going to have to sign paperwork, submit financial documentation, sign the offer, cooperate with the showings. I mean, really, it's going to highly depend on the cooperation of that seller and how willing they are to get the short sale done. Incorrectly completed documentation. We see all too often documentation gets submitted only to get reviewed for X amount of business days and then rejected and sent back. And when that happens, guys, it has to be redone, all the documentation, re-signed, re-filled out, whatever the case is, resubmitted to the lender, and they start all over. The lender's not going to pick up where they left off. They're going to start the whole review process over again. And if this goes back and forth a couple times, it could really waste a lot of time. Multiple lenders. Multiple lenders could be another factor that delays the process. I touched on this a bit in some other videos as well as earlier on in this video. If there's multiple liens against a property, here's what happens on a really quick overview. So you have the primary lender. Primary lender, let's say hypothetically, they accept the short sale. Well, it's not over, because if there's a secondary lender, that primary lender is going to make a settlement offer to the secondary lender. Let's say you owe the secondary lender $20,000 for the mortgage balance, and the primary lender is only willing to offer them $5,000. Well, typically the secondary lender is going to look at that and they're going to counter the primary lender to try to get as much of a settlement as possible, to recoup their investment. So really that can go back and forth. Typically a deal is able to get worked out, but it just adds time. IRS lien, this is a big one. An IRS lien, especially when you're dealing with an FHA defaulting file. An FHA lender, it's within their guidelines. They won't even let you touch a short sale until that IRS lien is completely discharged from your property. That could take weeks, months. It could be a whole different scenario, whole different subject, but it definitely adds time. Copies of utility and property tax bills. A lot of times, if let's say you have back taxes on your property of $3,000. Well, guys, there's certain lenders that if it caps, let's say $2,500, they're going to want to see balances for it. They're going to want to see payoffs, utility balances, and a lot of times the title company will have it, which is great. But if they don't, or if they need updated payoffs, the title company needs to order them from the city, and that could take weeks to come in. They have to get them back, submit them to the lender, and it's a process. So it could go quickly if it's processed correctly, but it's definitely going to add time to the short sale timeline. Hope that explanation helps, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Have a great day.
If you wanna sell your house very fast for cash, then House Cash In gets the cash flowing.